So getting started on using the world-class blind-solving improvement framework that I've developed over the years, that might sound difficult, and world-class is in the name, so you might think you'd have to break a world record or something in order to learn how to use it. But in reality, I think anyone can learn it pretty much. And in case you haven't watched the last video yet, be sure to do that because I covered my whole backstory in blind solving and how I got to where I am today and how I developed this framework in the first place. Anyway, here's an exercise that you can use to potentially figure out how to best improve from your current situation, regardless of your skill level. So what I want you to do is go through a blind solve, but this time speak out whatever goes through your head. So if you're memorizing, say, the letters C and T when going through the cube, just speak out those letters and do the same thing when actually solving the cube.
시조, 소매, 욕, 손, 뉴욕, 시조.
So now that you've done it once, or maybe even a few times, so you have a bit more of a sample size, be sure to ask yourself these questions. So firstly, how long did you spend converting the letter pairs to words? Well, as you probably saw in the last clip, for me it's pretty much instantaneous, but obviously earlier on that's going to take a bit of time, and you might find certain pairs take a lot longer than others, in which case I recommend using like an app like Anki in order to sort of train those a lot more. And secondly, did you mess up your memorization and have to redo it at any stage along your solve? Because if you did that, then you should try to avoid doing that as much as possible, because it's better to memorize the right thing the first time around instead of memorizing the incorrect thing and having to try to forget that and try to overwrite that with the correct thing. It's better to memorize everything just slower in general and being more accurate instead of going through the wrong thing. And if I were to do that in a solve, then I'd just basically be screwed essentially at my level. And I see this happen with a lot of beginner and intermediate solvers, so just be sure to watch out for that. And lastly, did you notice anything that surprised you? Perhaps you're just trying to incorporate your 3 style algs into your solves and you're pausing 10 seconds between every single alg. Maybe memorization's taking a lot longer than you expected for corners than you initially anticipated, or perhaps even the fact that between corners and edges you tend to spend way too much time trying to recall your corners after switching between those two piece types, which I still sometimes do to this day. Not for 20 seconds though. Anyway, the point of these questions and the exercise itself is to help you self-diagnose your solving and to figure out where your bottlenecks are. And the reason why I told you to speak out your memorization is so you can kind of see almost the entire solve, which involves a lot of memorization, which you don't normally see in solves. And knowing your bottleneck or where you can improve the most is very important, because I've seen a lot of people just spend a lot of time learning a bunch of algs that are probably going to be pretty much irrelevant to their improvement until they reach a much faster stage, or maybe they're spending too much time getting caught up in certain aspects of memo when it's actually going alright. So it's very important to know, once again, where your weak points are and to focus on those, and it pretty much ignore everything else, with some exceptions. Anyway, in my upcoming blind solving masterclass, I'll be sharing a bunch more tips like these, as well as very in-depth content on how to solve the cube blindfolded, to how to come up with letter pair words, to how to go through the entire 3-style process, and much more. So be sure to stay tuned for that when I release the information on that in a few days. Anyway, in the next video, I'll be sharing with you guys the #1 tool I use to help me memorize anything for the long term, whether it be setups, algorithms, or words. And I don't see people using this nearly as much as they should be. But anyhow, thanks for tuning in to this second video, and be sure to stay tuned for the next one. See ya.